My name is Rahul Jagtiani. I'm the consulting editor at MoneyControl in India, which is part of the Network 18 CNBC group. And we're going to be talking about the trillion-dollar market opportunity, investment, valuation, scalability for Web 3.0. And we have a fantastic panel with us. We've got Paula Tavangar, who is a fund manager at Swissborg. We've got Kirk, I want to say Pfluger, yeah, the business development manager at LD Capital. We've got Chiu, the founder at Boba Network. And we've got Antolí, the CEO at ViewWorld and InvestDPA. A round of applause for our esteemed panel, please. Oops. And I hope I can hear you guys, because yesterday I was on the panel, there was a little bit of an echo. So pardon me if I just move on to the next question if I haven't heard you. But why don't you guys start out by just introducing yourselves and your projects, and then I'll start with the questions as well. Starting with Paula.
Thank you. So my name is Paula Tavangar, and currently I'm on the VC side of Swissborg. We have an investment arm where I'm portfolio manager, and we're generally looking at early stage token investments. My previous experience is quite broad, but mainly traditional finance. I've been part as a co-founder at Genesis Capital, where we were developing high-frequency trading algorithms. And I'm here in Dubai for the last 6 years.
Great. Kurt?
Yeah, my name is Kurt Pfluger. I was a serial tech entrepreneur in Silicon Valley. I got into crypto around 2013, started investing and advising different projects in 2017, and last year joined LD Capital as a business development manager and venture partner for the fund. LD Capital has over 350 portfolio companies, all crypto, and so we're out scouring the world to try to find some of the best tech and the best founders to invest in.
Hi, I'm Chiu, founder and CEO of Boba Network. We are an Ethereum Layer 2 network, and the only network that enables Web 2 and Web 3 interoperability. I come from a distributed systems background in software engineering, and also spent several years as a venture investor investing in enterprise software, fintech, AI, and blockchain startups.
So I'm Antolí. I'm from Spain. I've been 14 years here in Dubai. I'm an architect, and we developed ViewWorld as the first metaverse of businesses. So we are focusing to the B2B, and we bring different streams of income into the platform. We create for businesses where the way to go, where the businesses can give us their specifications. We build it 3D, we put it in their websites, and then we put it in our platform, and we generate that income and cross-selling and footfall that they need to be present and to have a visibility in the metaverse.
That's great. And I want to start off with Web 3.0. There's a lot of buzz around Web 3.0, and at least where I come from in India, when you use the phrase cryptocurrency, the government eyes you with suspicion, but the moment you say Web 3.0 and digital asset, they're a lot more comfortable with that terminology. But this space is growing rapidly, and I was in fact listening to a podcast where, I heard, yes, that this space is growing at 113% year on year, while the internet was growing at 63% year on year. So this is, perhaps almost double the rate of adoption of the internet, which is fantastic. But we're probably not quite there yet. I want to say we're still in, maybe Web 2.2 or Web 2.5, because there's so much opportunity. And in your opinion, and I'm going to start with Kurt, which are some of the specific areas that we need to focus on? I know the whole area needs to grow, but if you were to choose between DeFi, GameFi, NFT marketplaces, infrastructure, blockchain, scaling solutions, and I know you have something to say about scaling solutions, but which is a specific area of interest from an investment perspective for you, or just?
Yeah, I think, clearly it is still early days, as you mentioned. We're still trying to solve a lot of problems, and I think, if you look at infrastructure like security, scaling, these are the types of things that we're looking at, really kind of focused on infrastructure, because without that infrastructure, it's very difficult to scale.
Paula?
Well, I will share an interesting fact. At Swissborg Ventures, most of the projects that we're getting, like most of the quality deals in terms of team experience, backing, are surprisingly, or maybe not, in gaming, metaverse gaming. That's mainly what we're looking at, maybe more than 60% of all the deals that are coming in. But of course, I think that there are much better applications. I think this is just sort of a market entry point to make the average person interested. But then there are so many real life actual cases where this can be applied. I think that the medical labs outside is a very interesting project where they give the medical treatment for first timers, like really a real life experience through an AR. So this is a very interesting use. And I can talk for hours about NFTs too. So maybe later in the panel I can open up more the topic.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, GameFi and NFTs are sort of like the gateway drug to the crypto space. And, but all this needs strong infrastructure. And Alan, you run an L2 scaling solution. So what's your opinion on layer 1s and layer 2s? Do you think layer 1s are going to be the settlement layer while all the transactions are going to happen on L2? And what's your opinion on the blockchain trilemma? And if you can just shed some light on that.
Sure, happy to. The way we look at it is, you mentioned how early we are still in the growth of the whole Web3 space, and that's absolutely true. And that's partly because of the limitations of the technology infrastructure that is available today. And most of the scaling efforts have been focused on making blockchains faster and cheaper, and that's certainly required in order to drive broader adoption. But there's also a missing dimension that's been neglected, and that's where we are focused on as an Ethereum layer 2 solution, Boba network, and that is the richness of applications, what you can actually do as a developer when you're building a decentralized app. And the way we look at it is, if we're going to realize the full potential of Web3, we need top developers to be building on Web3. And that means we need to enable them to bring the latest and greatest in computer science techniques such as machine learning, advanced cryptography, data science into the world of Web3, and that means breaking out of the current limitations of smart contracts. And what that requires, creating an interoperability layer between Web2 and Web3 infrastructure, and we call that hybrid compute in Boba in our platform. And what that means is when developers are building increasingly demanding apps from a computational complexity perspective, Boba offers them the ideal platform, or any platform that offers this kind of hybrid compute capabilities. We've moved so far in only 2 years from when DeFi summer started taking off, where the computation was only multiplying two numbers together, to now we're talking about creating metaverses that will mimic the real world. And you can just imagine the level of complexity in computational requirements has just gone up significantly. And that's, I think, where we need to go in order to scale Web3 infrastructure to keep up with the imagination of developers and what the users are demanding.
One of the biggest challenges currently is gas fees, and that's kind of like hindering a lot of people from getting into the space. And if you see layer 1 Ethereum, the retail customers priced out. So what are some of the solutions that you're building? Are you building a gas-free or virtually gas-free technology layer to perhaps enhance or facilitate better adoption?
Definitely. To your point earlier, we're seeing this trend migrating transactions from layer 1 to layer 2s and leveraging layer 1s primarily for settlement purposes. And then going beyond that, we are also going to see this bifurcation of workloads between on-chain and off-chain. And off-chain workloads, of course, are going to be more gas efficient, gasless in most cases. in the case of our network, we do enforce a level of gas in order to invoke off-chain workloads as a way to prevent abuse of those compute resources. But they're still going to be dramatically much more gas efficient than on-chain workloads. Of course, some workloads do need to stay on-chain for verifiability purposes, and that's the way the future of Web3 computing is going to go. And if we look at the history of computing, the dominant architecture has always been hybrid. When we look at, for example, today, between our phones and the cloud, some workloads run on the cloud while others run on the phone. While the types of workloads that run on each side of that divide would change over time, but the full user experience is delivered as a combination of these two platforms working together. And we see this wave, a similar architecture emerging between Web 2 and Web 3 as well.
But can you solve that without, sacrificing decentralization or sacrificing speed?
Well, enabling developers to leverage Web 2 infrastructure is actually going to give them the speed that is lacking in decentralized infrastructure. Now, on the other hand, there are a lot of benefits to decentralization, which is why the future is not going to be all Web 2 or all Web 3. It's going to be the best of both worlds, depending on the needs of the particular workloads. Just to give you a concrete example, we've been talking to a lot of game developers who are excited about what we enable, and one of the concrete use cases is they can actually create an in-game NFTs that dynamically reflect the current state of gameplay, right? So the game engine is always going to be running off-chain. You cannot possibly run Unreal on-chain, but you can create NFTs that live on-chain that reflect what's happening off-chain. And that's just one of the many examples of what we're enabling.
Antonio, any thoughts on this? What are you guys looking at your firm in terms of investments?
So at this moment, what the biggest challenge we see is everyone is looking that Metaverse is going to be accessible on the phone. So now, as you mentioned, to have a technology that runs in a $30 phone to a $1,000 phone is a big gap. So, for example, when we develop, we need to make sure that graphic-wise, your $30 phone has the ability to move that space, that virtual space. That's what our clients want. Now, in terms of the future, it's good because we believe that while we're sitting here, there are new engines being developed that are going to do a better metaverse, a better avatar, a better interaction. So we believe that we are in the right wave, and that wave will bring us to a better future in terms of the metaverse and the 3.0. When we started, our main aim was why we cannot, for example, if we buy in Amazon, we buy a book, why we cannot get, they tell you there are 3 books, why we cannot see the shelf, why cannot get that book from the shelf and I can open it. We can do that right now. And that's what our clients want. They want to go a step further. We enhance the technology, we enhance the possibility to sell for them and to go into that e-commerce environment a bit faster and better. And that's what they want from us.
Okay. Kurt, I want to ask you, which subsectors within Web 3.0 are attracting the most capital? It seems like NFT marketplaces and perhaps even some blockchains like your Solanas of the world in the recent past get a lot of attention in traditional media, but I'm sure there are some spaces and areas that could that are a bit undervalued and perhaps attract more capital that we don't even know about.
Sure. Yeah. I think again back to the scaling problem. Obviously, what Alan's doing with Boba is it's a massive improvement over what we've had in the past. We're looking at other kinds of DeFi protocols which solve some problems that haven't been addressed before. When you look at volatility in token prices in crypto, and then kind of bringing liquidity back into the native platform, the native token platform, which is actually creating a very strong kind of stabilization for those token prices. So there are a lot of these kind of innovations and that's what's really impressive, is that the velocity of innovation that's happening in this space is mind-blowing. I mean, it's unlike, I'm old enough to tell you that I lived through the dot-com era, and that was an interesting time. But to me, the people that have been attracted to this area into this industry and looking to solve these problems, it's impressive. It's really something to see.
Paula?
Well, from my end, I can say that I think in terms of valuations right now, there is a small bubble maybe in the projects which are more community-centric, because there is just a hype around them, right? So this reflects in the valuation times more than what it would be in like traditional finance valuations. That's why I prefer to look at trends or something that I see as important in the next 5 years, 10 years. So for me, something very interesting is how we're going to be processing our own data. So there are multiple programs that are solving this problem, and they're taking different approaches. So I've been reviewing some projects that provide like a plugin for your browser so that they collect your data and you can agree which data you want to sell exactly. Then there are the data unions, which collect the data together, so that provides a higher value to everyone in the union. And then there are people that are going even one step further, and they're creating an aggregator platform for data unions. So for me, this is a really interesting aspect. I definitely don't think that is something that will generate 100x in the next 2 months, but as a long-term trend, I think it's very interesting because this empowers us, like everyone, to control how their data is distributed and monetized.
Is there a particular area that, Antonio, that you're looking at where that you feel that's attracting the most capital within the metaverse?
So we, in our firm, we see a lot of push for the retail and the real estate. So again, there is a lot of regulation in virtual assets that is going to attract a lot. For example, we are focusing on building one of the best and the first virtual real estate fund. The game behind is a similar REIT, so we have AAA clients with similar leases to the fund, and then why we cannot maximize on that. Now we are removing the capex that a REIT has every 5 years to rebuild those buildings. What we are doing is we build it with the push of a fund, for example, and then we only maintain and keep generating income. So for example, that's an interesting goal that we see with NFTs. We believe that in the future, any title deed of any real estate that you buy could be an NFT. Why we need to go with all paper to the notary? That will allow transactions worldwide to be faster. Again, to arrive to that point, we still have a lot of regulation to cross, but there are steps and they're happening. And then, of course, the crypto and the blockchain allowing as well transactions into the monetary side.
And Alan, what's your view, because you're running a layer 2 solution, so what kind of projects are being deployed on your platform currently? What kind of projects do you see maximum growth in on layer 2s?
So we are fully Ethereum equivalent platform. So obviously all the usual applications you see on Ethereum, you're going to find them on Boba, across DeFi and NFT marketplaces. But looking into the future, especially the decentralized applications that take advantage of the ability to be able to leverage off-chain processes that require much higher computational requirements, definitely seeing them in GameFi as well as Metaverse. And the game developers are really excited about the possibilities that platforms like Boba with hybrid compute that opens up for them because of the limitations of running everything purely on a Web3 decentralized infrastructure. At the end of the day, there's always a price to be paid when you're executing on in a decentralized manner because of the need to replicate the same computation over an entire network in order to achieve consensus. So, which is why as a layer 2 platform, being in the layer 2 allows us to then innovate further on top of the roll-up architecture to create something like hybrid compute that brings together the power of Web3 and Web2, the scalability of Web2 and the decentralization benefits of Web3. So,
did you just say that you're built on top of roll-up architecture?
Yeah, we're able to bring these two worlds together precisely because we are operating as a roll-up, as a layer 2.
Okay, so how is, I mean, I'm not super technical, but how is it different from, let's say, an Arbitrum or Optimus?
So the underlying architecture is similar. Where we have innovated is we have modified a version of Go Ethereum in order to intercept calls that are the smart contract transactions that have an off-chain component. And we would execute and we would trigger these off-chain processes, which could be as complex as you want. You could talk to a gaming engine, or it could be a machine learning trained model, or it could even tap into enterprise data sources and pull those data elements into your smart contract. And we've implemented it in such a way that is completely EVM compatible and transparent and fully auditable on-chain.
Okay, interesting. I want to also ask you, are some of these valuations justified because there's so much money flowing into this space? In fact, I mean, just about 6 months ago, an Ether rock sold for over $1 million. So are we just seeing, the dot-com boom and bust cycle all over again? And at what point do we justify prices like that? Let's start with Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, if you asked me a week ago, I would tell you that valuations didn't reflect the market that we started seeing in the downturn. If you look, even in the last couple of days, obviously there have been a lot of events happening around the world that have triggered kind of maybe more of a reality for a lot of companies looking to raise capital. And I mean, I can tell you anecdotally, other startups that are looking to raise capital that we're looking to have some pretty hefty valuations at their initial raise, or even later stage where they were looking at a $100 million valuation but had to settle for a $30 million valuation, but they got it done. So I think these are the kinds of mechanisms that happen in the marketplace that then set valuations and kind of reset valuations to kind of more reasonable.
Are the valuations being reset because of recent macro events and geopolitical events, or is it just that the overall space is cooling down?
I think it's the market. Obviously, it's the market in general, and then obviously, secondly, just what's happening geopolitically.
What are you seeing? Are you now, looking to spend less money to acquire or fund more projects?
Well, actually, no, because I think when you're early in a quality project, it will always play out well. But I was really interested to come in on the valuations conversation, because for me, like right now, we can say that we're in a sort of a crisis. Let's not say it officially, but traditional markets are not really doing very well. But then when you look also to the native coins, etc., they're not doing too good. But then when you look to all the money that is poured into Metaverse is just insane. Like valuations there of projects that literally do not even have a product easily sell for like 200-400 FTV, which is really crazy.
Which is exactly what we saw 22 years ago, right? With the dot-com boom and bust.
So that's what I'm saying. But I feel that there is another layer to that. Like this is like the beginning of Bitcoin. Nobody really knows the fair value. So until the market really settles, I think a lot of people will get burned.
What are your thoughts, Antonio?
So I think, as mentioned before, the regulations are going to help a lot. Like we had seen certain moves on these virtual assets, people that are going to be able to transact, the crypto being now from the banks, central banks being adopted. All of that is going to even bring more power and valuation to the metaverse. I think until that is settled, we will see a bit of doubt and cold feet. And at the end of the day, I think, as I said before, we're in the right path. It's I think, unstoppable that becomes 3.0.
We keep talking about metaverse, and I know in the last 6 months, especially, after Facebook rebranded itself as Meta, the term is kind of like thrown around pretty loosely, right? But, touching upon the metaverse, I want to ask you, is it solving any real-world use? I mean, are there any good real-world use cases? What problem is it solving? And what is the future of the metaverse, in your opinion?
Well, I think that even today, if you see the concept and what's happening outside, everybody's really interested into the NFTs and the games, which is the very first layer, I believe. But it's understandable for people to be interested, because it's very exciting to buy something that is worth half Ether and then in 24 hours you already have 500. So people hear these stories and they get excited and they connect Metaverse to that. But I believe Metaverse is so much more than this. It's just unlimited possibilities. Like, I can just start counting, but if we start from NFTs, this can be our digital identity. This can be our health identity, which can be used all over the world. This can be used for elections. This can be used for even for concerts, for no black market of tickets to be happening. On another layer, the Metaverse itself, it's such an opportunity. I already mentioned the medical project outside, but you can do everything in the Metaverse. You can create a workspace. You can connect with people from over the world. In addition to, there is an interesting concept of digital tourism too. So you can see places that you may never afford to see in real life, or let's say you're booking a hotel room across the globe, and now you can really see it, not simply 3D. So I think Metaverse is extremely interesting concept. And the last thing, so the idea 10, 20 years from now is to build a digital twin of the current world we're living in, ideally. So what will happen is it will be exactly the same, and we will be the same people in the Metaverse. And then, of course, from there on, you can imagine all the possibilities.
That's really interesting because, you know, recently I was having lunch with a couple of friends and I spoke to them about digital clothing and spending maybe like $50 for a pair of sunglasses for your avatar. And I got laughed out of the room. It's just so futuristic and so out there that most people who are not in this space can't wrap their heads around that. So Alan, what are your thoughts in terms of projects like these that are launching on your platform?
To us, metaverses really they are a response to an online Web 2 phenomenon that we're already seeing, as in the emergence of multiple identities on different platforms, each persona serving a different purpose. And of course, in the Web 2 world, a serious downside is you don't really own your own identities. And you can't take your Twitter persona over to Instagram and over to a different platform. And that's why we see this emergence of decentralized metaverses. And it's also one of the reasons why, personally, I'm not bullish on centralized implementations of the metaverse, because that's just replicating the flaw model that we see in Web 2 properties and carry them over to, yeah, sure, a fancier world, but fundamentally doesn't address the issue of every person. We have an innate desire to own our identities.
So do you think your Web3 wallet is going to be similar to your Twitter profile or your Instagram profile, where it represents who you are? So if you're a soccer fan, perhaps you have a Manchester United NFT or a POAP or something that's in your wallet, and that kind of represents who you are?
I would say I would probably have multiple identities, each one representing how I want to show up in a specific context. So I could be a Manchester fan in one context, and in a different context, I could be rooting for a different team.
Interesting. So you'd have that as your profile in a different wallet, or could it be the same wallet as well?
I would probably set up different wallet.
Interesting.
To allow for maximum flexibility in how these different personas evolve. And then, of course, on top of that, another benefit to the metaverse compared to the real world is you can create fractal versions of these metaverses and go as high or as deep level, where in the real world it's kind of hard to imagine us shrinking ourselves down to the subatomic level and operate at that layer.
Walk us through that. I mean, what exactly do you mean by that?
Well, it's kind of like imagine yourself being Ant-Man.
Sorry?
Imagine yourself being Ant-Man, the Marvel character, being able to shrink yourself down to subatomic level and then play in that world is impossible in the physical world. But in the metaverse, we can use the scientific principles that we already understand around quantum mechanics and manifest that kind of metaverse. And you can have different versions of Rahul showing up in that subatomic world.
Yeah, I probably shouldn't say this anyway. But Antonio, you've got a background in architecture, and there's a lot of talk on designers now designing homes and offices in the metaverse. Is that something that you guys are looking at as well? Because that just boggles my mind.
Yeah, so for us, it was very interesting to open that stream of becoming architects in the metaverse and designing now with a certain rule and parameter. So we have clients that they want a waterfall into the middle of the living room. So a lion walking in the entrance. So we are creating the impossible, and that is also unleashing that creativity. And it's an amazing opportunity to have that. But once said that, a lot of clients, what they really want is the data behind. Many of the clients, what they're very interested is data collection, any visitor coming into the space, because we integrate advertisement, we integrate also the repeatability of the visits, and that enhances the sales and enhances the push of a better enhancement of the sale product.
Wow, that's just amazing. And Paula, you talked about your avatar being your digital twin, and I hate to be a little morose here, but it's a question that's been running through my mind, that can your digital avatar die when you pass away? And that's just fascinating, because we talk about looking good in the metaverse. We're buying digital shoes, we're buying digital clothing because you want to look good, but it's also important that your avatar is fit in the metaverse. So is there some sort of future application where perhaps your Apple Watch is linked to your digital avatar, and when you go work out, your digital avatar is getting fit as well?
Well, that's a really tough question. I don't know about if your avatar would be able to die, because otherwise we'll probably have some metaverse overcrowding, economic crisis, and the resources will get scarce. But joke aside, I think that this digital twin reality is coming. So ideally we'll have more devices that we're connected to. Maybe now we cannot even imagine it, right? But yeah, something like the Apple Watch is something very realistic, through which you can be connected to your digital avatar and it can become as close to you as possible.
Yeah, and Kurt, you look like a fit guy. So do you advocate for, you sitting on the couch and watching Netflix while your digital avatar does all the work in the metaverse?
I'm all for that, and also I'm in real life I'm a horrible dancer, but in the metaverse I'm unbelievable.
Yeah, you got a lot of dates in the metaverse?
Haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, Alan, what are your thoughts?
Well, I think it's going to be up to the users to choose how much of their physical world, or quote unquote in real life data they want to connect with their avatars. And it will be super fun to have, like, for example, one version of myself that is connected to my real world activities, or perhaps even locations, but not necessarily directly, but a transposition perhaps, but then also have different versions of Alan, and also have different levels of privacy controls. Perhaps there's going to be a more publicly accessible version of my persona that is open to interacting with other avatars in the metaverse, but then there are other versions that might reflect more of my in real life personality or attributes, but that one is going to be more tightly controlled in terms of access and privacy exposure, and that is designed to connect with other avatars that I've gotten to know at a deeper level. So I can see some of these lessons that we have learned from Web 2 social network experiments being re-implemented in a more user-centric way, that from the ground up, so that we don't have to retrofit and fix flawed models. We can build them right from day one.
Wow. And Antonio, you're building all these beautiful homes in the metaverse, and what happens when the owner of those homes is no longer around? What happens to those homes, and who owns them?
So that's a great question. For example, we have been working on a project that is basically working on what your legacy is going to be. In a certain point of time, the wallet that Alan was mentioned, it might carry our title deeds in NFTs. It might carry all the assets that we have around the world, and it becomes your will. So that project of becoming a will of a wallet in the metaverse, that could be the legacy that you give to your kids, and that's an interesting way of moving assets into the metaverse as well.
Great. So, we've touched upon a lot in the metaverse, including morose topics like passing away and the impact that has on your digital avatar. We've talked about scalability. We've talked about digital twins, and we've talked about investments in digital infrastructure. And I'd like to open the floor for questions if anyone has any questions, because we just have a few minutes left. So yeah, feel free to ask whatever you want. Anyone? Is this too late in the day, or? All right, well, thank you so much. I've learned a lot, and this has been absolutely fascinating. And look forward to connecting with you guys again soon. And thank you guys. A round of applause for our panelists.
Thank you.